professor at the University of Ottawa. Good morning. How are you
Good.
doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I am good. It is kind of the feel, isn't it? You and I have talked so many times about this pandemic and this virus, and there was fear and confusion and lack of knowledge, and then trying to cope with a lockdown and how long. And now there is, how do we navigate? How are you feeling about our chances as you across the country and around the world this morning?
Well, I'm an optimist by nature, so I'm always feeling pretty good about our chances. And the reason is we know so much more now than we did a year ago. We know pretty much how this disease is transmitted. We know how to control it. What we lack is, the patience, the resources, the political will, and the time to do so with great effectiveness. So we know we just have to wear high quality masks, keep our distance, have good quality ventilation because COVID has a strong airborne component, and we need to really increase vaccine uptake. So if we imagine that tomorrow everybody in the world was magically double vaccinated, we'd be out of this crisis instantaneously or within 2 weeks, right? But it'll take a while to get there. So while it is surging through much of the population of the world, we're still in crisis. So we're not out of this yet.
What could change that? It seems that the benchmark in our future could be the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. What are we looking for? And what kind of numbers and data are you looking at every day as you assess the risk and the crisis?
Yeah, good question. So we're talking locally here, either where we live in Canada or in Canada as a whole. Globally, it's a different situation entirely. But locally, in Canada as a whole, we're doing more or less well, believe it or not. Cases are on the rise, which is concerning, but it's not nearly on the same scale as it was this time last year. So we look at first the reproduction number. That's the average number of new cases produced by an existing case. If that number is 1, then we're in steady state. We're not getting worse, we're not getting better, we can manage. If that number is greater than 1, even if it's 1.01, that is by definition exponential growth, and it means we're on the road to some trouble. If it's less than 1, it means we're on the road to extinguishing the disease to a large extent. So that's the first thing we look at. And the second thing we look at is the number of new cases per day where we live. That gives us a sense of the burden of disease in our community. And in addition to that, we also look at the hospitalization rate, the test positivity rate, and so forth. But the most important thing in my mind is that reproduction number. It tells us, are we going up, are we going down? The last few days in Canada, we seem to be going up. Is that concerning? Yes, it is, but we'll see how long it lasts. With the cold weather, people are going indoors more. We have more socialization in these informal home-based environments that aren't subject to the vaccine passport rules of whichever province you're in. So they're harder to control from a public health standpoint. So we're going to see some interesting things in the next few weeks.
We could, and at what point do we do something? And what the heck do we do? We talked about psychology so much through this, and it's been really important to get buy-in. Is there buy-in for any other restriction, or do we use other things?
I don't think there's going to be a lot of public tolerance for restrictions of the type that we had last year. I don't think there's a need for it. I don't think we need to lock down, as we say. There's no need to close certain businesses. There may be a need to restrict capacity limits. There may be a need to have other policy options, for example, maintaining the vaccine passport and enforcing it. For example, maintaining a good mask mandate, using a high quality mask, not just a little cloth mask that we're used to up to this point. Mandating good quality ventilation systems in places of business, especially restaurants and gyms, and using that tool that we don't seem to be using to high effectiveness yet, and that is rapid tests. At this point, this should be a ubiquitous thing in our lives, and it isn't. If we use rapid tests more often, we could keep things open and have a relatively normal life while we wait for vaccination to work as magic.
You know, you've mentioned ventilation, and I have been following this story, and I know others have, but it has not been out in the public. When I mention it, people seem to be quizzical. Are they getting the message about this? Because I sometimes get the feeling that people are saying there's something wrong with her because she keeps going on and on about it. And I remember seeing the data and the sprays and all that in the early research. as the pandemic came and when it first started to hit that, hey, maybe this thing is different and science is a journey and it's got here. And epidemiologists like yourself seem to be mentioning it more and more now.
Yeah, COVID has a strong airborne component, might even be primarily airborne. What that means is, if this is true, then it is spread like cigarette smoke. It lingers for a long time. It can waft in the air and stay there for hours, even after the source has left the room. Up till now, we're using mostly what we call droplet control, where we presume that the disease falls from your mouth within a space of 2 meters or so by the force of gravity. That's why we've assumed that low-quality cloth masks were good enough, simply keeping your distance was good enough, but it isn't. The data kind of bears that out now. So ventilation allows us to control for that aerosol component. So places like schools, in my opinion, should have high-quality HEPA style or high, what's called MERV, filtration systems to filter out those smaller particles so they don't linger long enough. A window open does that as well. If we do not control the aerosol component, then we cannot control this distance infection, like we saw on cruise ships where people were quarantined in their rooms but still got infected because they share a ventilation system. So that, I think, is the magical ingredient to how we can deploy some more public health assets and really quash this thing well. But again, that's just controlling transmission while we get vaccination sufficiently into a number of arms so that we get to a low enough level of burden that we can mostly forget about this, except for public health workers.
What about boosters and how fast should we be thinking about them? I'm getting one tomorrow and I get put on the list early because of the double dose AstraZeneca and I can hardly wait. When we look into the future, do we say, okay, 3, 4, kind of like the flu shot? What are you thinking?
I think right now the data suggests that this is a 3 and done. It's a 3-course vaccine. It might be a 4-course vaccine, but it won't. I don't think it's going to be every year, every couple of years you need a booster, unless we're doing so to account for new variants. We have a lot of vaccines in our lives, like the hepatitis vaccine, that are 3 or 4-course vaccines. This is not unusual. And remember, your body has 2 arms of its immune system, the humoral arm and the cellular arm. The humoral arm is antibodies, and the humoral arm tends to wane quickly. But the cellular arm is like T cells and B cells. That's the memory that your body has of these diseases. And that lasts a long time, sometimes a lifetime. What that means is, while our immunity might be fading, the ability to prevent serious disease and death is going to last a very long time. These additional boosters are mostly about allowing your body to prevent initial infection, not just serious disease and hospitalization and death. And if we can prevent initial infection, we prevent transmission. If we prevent transmission, we have a very good chance of quashing this thing to low enough levels where our lives aren't affected anymore.
All right, I think you cheered me up. Every week I'm going to do a little bit more. However, as you say, you've got to take the temperature out there and ventilation. Very quick question. What about in the home as people start thinking about, getting together over the holidays? HEPA filters in the home.
Yeah, if you have a portable HEPA filter is not a bad idea if you can afford one. Keep a window open if you can do that. The most important thing with gatherings, I think, is push vaccination if you can. If you're nervous about people being present who might be infected, make sure everyone's wearing a high-quality mask. And if you're symptomatic, stay home. Don't expose yourself to people. Be responsible. If you've got symptoms, just wait it out until the symptoms go away. That'll help a lot.
Dr. Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist, associate professor at the University of Ottawa. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.